All right. We got the Master Grow Gang on. How's it going?
Hey. All right, how you doing today, John?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Glad to see you guys
Cool.
join us.
Good to see you.
So
Thank you.
I hope you guys got my message that we have a special guest on tonight. Someone who's going to hopefully give us a lot of insight for those of us who are trying to get into the growing part. We want to build that up and also begin to start working on and building up the health end of it along with the products. So introduce to you guys John Glover. He's on the line with us today. He's the Land Steward Branch Chief at a department in the USDA. He's a young man that I met at the All Black National Convention in Louisville this past year, and he passed on his information and said that he'd be willing to help out. And the best thing about it is he's remained true to his word. I've reached out to him several times, and he has said that, and he's helped me out. A couple of the gentlemen that was on the first time wanted to get with him, and I introduced him to him. He worked with him, and so I asked him if he'd come on and talk to us a little bit and give us some information for those of us who are trying to get into growing and trying to see how we can work this out. So, John, our group here is a group we're trying to work together. We're all across the country, as far north as Michigan and Wisconsin and things of that nature, and as far west as California, and as far south as Texas. And I think we have some folks out there in the Carolinas and everything else. So, and we're just trying to work together. We see one of our main issues is one, learning what we can do, what the aspects are on trying to work together. Two, getting information out to our as far as I'm getting a little feedback, so I'm gonna ask everybody to mute their stuff because I'm getting feedback. I don't know who I'm getting it from. But anyhow, and so we are trying to work together as to get the information out to educate our people on eating healthy, going into food deserts, and being able to provide fresh produce, and working together to help build up each other and help each other out. So with that being said, John, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you and let you introduce yourself and what you're about. John has another individual named Barry Hamilton, who hopefully will be able to get on and help us out also. And if not, then John can tell us what he does and give us some ideas about some of the things that they have out there in the USDA. So, John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Jimerson. Again, my name is John Glover. I work for the United States Department of Agricultural Natural Resources Conservation Service in Washington, D.C. And John and I met several months ago. We've been in contact, again, as John said, just exchanging information, and he's asked me to provide some general information. I do work within an area called the Easement Programs Division and the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And some of the programs I'm going to talk about, I don't work directly in those areas, but I have 29 years of experience, and I have worked with those programs over the years, although they might have changed slightly. I do have knowledge and understanding of how they work. And hopefully Barry Hamilton will be able to join that John mentioned earlier, because Barry is one of the national outreach specialists, and he worked with landowners such as yourself, trying to help you all gain a full understanding of what programs and services are available in our agency as well as USDA in general. But one program I want to start off with is called and within the Natural Resources Conservation Service, we have several programs that we administer. And one program in particular that has been used and continues to be used is called the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. And what that program does is allows farmers and producers to use cost share funding. And when I say cost share funding, it's USDA is paying a portion of the funding to do a project related to natural resource conservation. And when I say natural resource conservation, I mean the conservation of soil or water or plants or animals, things such as that. And I think John may have actually signed up for one of those programs, and he might have talked about that in the past, but those programs are available all across the country, and it's available on an individual county basis. So if you have a USDA office within your county, you have an office called the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS. And those individuals are there to help you learn information about the program, what you might be eligible for. There are different batching periods that where they process applications. You might go in and sign up, and it might be a month or two before they actually batch the applications, and it's all based on the funding that that county receives. And again, these programs are available in every county in the country. And a good resource, again, is the NRCS office within your county. We do work in partnership with another federal agency and USDA called the Farm Service Agency, and FSA handles a lot of the Farm Bill program and payments to farmers for various purposes. And you might have heard of the Conservation Reserve Program, and they have several other programs that they administer, but we do work in partnership with them on a lot of programs. But within NRCS, the EQIP program, again, provides payments for various practices. And one thing that John and I have spoken about is the high tunnel. And the high tunnel is something very similar to a greenhouse. And we have a lot of interest across the country in rural and both urban areas where landowners have come in to sign up for the high tunnel, and they've actually installed the high tunnel on their property. And in order to use that program, you have to have ownership. You have to have control of the property, not necessarily ownership. You might have a lease or some agreement with the landowner where it might be a term agreement where they've agreed to allow you to use that property for a certain time period. And if that's the case, and if you can demonstrate that, you will be eligible to sign up for the program. Again, it is a competitive process, so there's a chance that you could get funding or you might not, depending on how many people sign up and how much funding is available. But again, I encourage you to go and check with those local NRCS offices in your area to get more information on that. And NRCS, we will, in general, pay up to 75% of the cost of the high tunnel. And what that does is it allows you to get into a high tunnel at a relatively low cost, and that you would only be paying 25% of the cost. And also, in some instances, if you are what's called a limited resource or historically underserved farmer, which includes minorities, you might be eligible for up to 90% of the cost. So there's a great incentive for you to learn more about that and see if this works for you. If you are interested, again, I would encourage you to visit the local NRCS office. A lot of information I'm sharing with you is also available on the NRCS website, and that information is updated on a regular basis. And if you find a national site, there's a place on there where you can actually go to your state, and I encourage you to look at your state because that's where they're going to list information on there about the sign-ups and things like that when those sign-ups occur. So you'll be able to remain current. And there's also a place for you to sign up to get on an email list that they'll notify you when different activities occur. But we have a host of programs available, but the EQIP or Environmental Quality Incentive Program is one that's of most interest to, especially for people that are into farming or trying to get into growing vegetables on a small scale. So, that program is available for you. Some other programs that we administer, we have the area I work in, we have conservation easements, and within those programs, we have several where they have various purposes. We have a program that conserves wetlands. One is to actually preserve farmlands and grassland and trees. So those are the main focus areas. The ones that preserve farmlands are actually programs where we administer the program in partnership with what's called an eligible entity. And it could be a state Department of Agriculture or some group like that where USDA provides 50% of the funding to put a conservation easement on the property. And an easement does place a restriction on the property if you sign up for that. Say, for instance, if you were to sign up for an agricultural conservation easement through an eligible entity, you would agree to keep that land in agricultural production in perpetuity. So if you ever wanted to develop that land, you will not be able to do that. There are provisions that will allow you to do what's called a cutout. Say, for instance, if you know that at some point you or some family member want to build a house on a 1 or 2 acre part of that land, you could cut out part of it to allow for that. But it's something that you really need to think about and understand before you go into that. It's definitely a great program. Some people have used it to save property. They've got in situations where they might have been in a situation where they were about to lose the land, and they could actually sign up for that agricultural land easement program and actually save their property. And you still retain ownership of it, but there's always a permanent easement on the property that's placed. And the wetlands program also very similar to that, different purpose though. The wetland is where we're attempting to restore the wetland areas, and those areas are restored and you're not able to farm those areas again. But we do allow for limited grazing and what's called compatible uses that might include hunting or fishing or something along that line. And so those are some of the major programs that we have available within NRCS. John, I'll take any questions that you might have now or from the group.
Okay. And thank you, John. I got a quick question for you myself. Yeah. One is about the program you just talked about, the on the conserving of the farmland. Now, you said that the USDA may provide up to 50%. Is that on the purchase of that land, or what's that? How you obtain that 50%?
Yeah, so with that program, we work in partnership, again, with what's called an eligible entity, and it could be a state agency or some other organization that's looking to preserve farmland within the state. And what NRCS does is once we enter into agreement, our agreement is really with those eligible entities. We're not working directly with the landowner, but those entities do work with the landowner. And what they do, they'll go out and find individuals or groups of individuals that are willing to enroll their properties into those agricultural land easement programs. And what they will do is they'll come to us and say, hey, we have John Jimerson, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Johnson. We have, each one has 100 acres they want to enroll. And there is something called the value, a conservation easement value. So it will not be the full value of the land, because you're still going to retain ownership of the property. You're going to retain what's called quiet enjoyment of the property. You will also be able to control who goes on the property. You'll be able to continue farming that property. But we're going to buy a large percentage of the value of the property in the easement. And what NRCS does is pays 50% of that value again to that eligible entity, and then they could use that 50% to provide an additional 50%. Again, it will not be the entire value of the property, but it will be a large portion of the property value.
Okay. That sounds good. Does anybody else have any question that they might ask? And for those who came in a little late, we have John Glover from the he's a land steward branch chief with the USDA. So he's giving us some information that we might be able to utilize in the future in the things that we're trying to do. So does anybody else have anything? Any questions that they might want to ask? Well, we'll go down the line. Master Grove, yeah, go ahead.
Nah, I'm just listening and learning as usual. You know, I like to take it all in and just see what I can come up with.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, now's a good time to ask because we have the main guy online, Tamika Peoples. I saw you on a few minutes ago. Do you have any questions that you might want to ask on this? Okay, Gabrielle Mosley, she wrote and asked a question, does the, in this conservation farmland, does the owner still have full ownership of that?
Yes, that is correct. The owner still retains ownership. As I mentioned earlier, they can control who comes on the property. Nothing changes there. You still have responsibility for paying the taxes on the property. But there is an easement placed there, and that land has to remain in agricultural for in perpetuity.
Okay, but you said we would be able to, if we got some land or if we had land, be able to build a house or so on a portion of that.
Yeah, but all of that would have to be negotiated on the front side of it because,
okay.
Again, if you want to do a cutout of that, you know, to take an acre or two out to build a house, perhaps in the future you can certainly do that, but it has to be negotiated on the front side.
Okay.
Once it's enrolled in that program, you're not able to go back and open it up again and renegotiate.
Okay, and so and this is an everlasting commitment, then, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yep. There's no backing out. You're right.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. That's one good way to be able to preserve the land.
Yeah. And you know, some of these programs might not work for everybody, but it's really a great idea that you all have an understanding of these available tools, and it might work for some, it won't work for others, but it's great to have the understanding of how it works.
Well, and that's great. Well, since let me ask Brian Johnson. You have anything that you'd like to ask?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay. No, sir. All right. Ms. Herden, you have anything? Okay. No response. All right. Well, we do have something that I'm sure that you guys all should be, even if you're not, you very well should be interested in. I've talked to, in talking to John Glover, I was asking him about the possibilities of getting scholarships and things of that nature to go to school. And so he took me a step even further that I think is awesome, and was telling me about a 1890 program that they have that does full scholarships to HBCU. So I'm going to allow, since no one has any questions about any of the other stuff, I'm going to allow John to give us a brief rundown on that and maybe answer a few questions on that.
Okay, sure. Thank you, John. So the program that John is speaking of is called the USDA 1890 program, and it is a scholarship program that's made available in partnership with select historically 1890 universities, and there's a specific list of schools that are eligible for this program, and they're called the land grant universities of 1890. With this program, it's funded on an annual basis, and again, in partnership with USDA and the universities, and USDA pays a lot of the cost for this program. And what it does, it pays for the full tuition. It also provides individuals who are selected into this program a position within the U.S. Department of Ag and select agency. It includes employee benefits, all the fees associated with college, books. It includes a laptop computer, a printer, software, as well as room and board for the entire 4-year academic year for a student that's selected into the program. It is a competitive process to get selected into this program. And just so happened, the application deadline is coming up pretty quick for this year. Applications are due on January 31st, again for 2018. And this program, they have 2 applications. One is for incoming freshmen, so that's anyone who's graduating high school, and that's going to be starting school this coming fall or some other later time. They would apply for one application. And then the second one would be for individuals who might already be in college, say, if, for instance, they completed their freshman year, they're going into their sophomore or junior year. So those individuals apply to a different program. And it is a great program. We actually have employees that have come on from these universities from across the country. They work in different agencies within USDA. And USDA is a very large organization. We have over 100,000 employees across the country. So it's a pretty major organization. And it includes the Forest Service, which is the largest organization within USDA. And my agency, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, we're only about 10,500 employees spread across the entire country. And we have an office in just about every county in the country. But this is a great program for individuals that are seeking to work within the agricultural sector. And to qualify for that program, I'll just mention a few things. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to hold a high school diploma or GED equivalent. You have to have a 3.0 or a better GPA coming out of high school. There are specific requirements for math score on the SAT. And you have to, again, be attending one of the 1890 historical Black land grant colleges. And you have to study for agricultural, food, natural resources, and other areas related to agriculture. And you also have to have demonstrated leadership service where you've actually been working in the leadership, whether it's paid or not, in the community. And then you also, of course, have to meet the deadline for applying. And this is a competitive process. They have a group that will screen the applicants and narrow the list down, and they have a limited amount of funding and a limited amount of positions that they fund on an annual basis. But the program, again, is open right now. And for this year, the deadline closes on the 31st of January. So with that, John, I'll take questions from you or any of the audience.
Okay. Well, my number one question is, can a old college person like me be able to enter into this program, or is this for only for recent graduates from high school?
Based on the information I have, there's no stipulation on whether it's a recent graduate or not. I think anyone is eligible to apply for this program. If you're interested, I would strongly encourage you to apply some of the basic application requirements that I mentioned earlier. If you meet that, and you're interested in attending the universities, I would encourage you to do that. And I'll just mention the list of universities that are on the list here. Alabama A&M, Alcorn State is in Mississippi, Delaware State, Florida A&M, Fort Valley University is in Georgia, Kentucky State University, Langston University is in Oklahoma, Lincoln University is in Missouri, North Carolina A&T University is in North Carolina, Prairie View A&M is in Texas, and it also includes South Carolina State University, Southern University in Baton Rouge, Tennessee State University, Tuskegee University in Alabama, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Virginia State University, and the final one is West Virginia State University.
All right.
So those are the schools that would qualify for this scholarship.
That's great. So I'm and I will say this: I will try, and I will at least post a link in our group on where to go to get this information.
Yes.
And so so that everybody will see it, because the deadline is upon us. As he said, it's January 31st, and there's a few things that you got to make sure that you take care of in order to be considered for this. So I will post that tonight, and hopefully everybody can get it. You can just Google 1890 program USDA, and it'll come up for you. I've already looked at this, and it looks like a very excellent program. So does anybody have any questions? I have on there Mr. Parker Lewis, and I forgot what he is. But anyhow, Parker, we have on here John Glover with the USDA, and he's the Land Steward Branch Chief in Washington, D.C. He was talking earlier about the different programs and stuff that they have with the USDA. I know that you're in the farming, and I didn't know if because you came on a little late, if you may have questions about that, and if not, if you got any questions about what he just talked about. So I'm gonna give you first opportunity to speak up. You got anything?
Greetings. Can you hear me?
Yep.
How's everyone doing? Sorry, I was late. I was having trouble finding the actual login ID. Guess I should be better prepared next time. But as of right now, I don't have any specific questions. I guess it's more because I'm a all-in type person, so it's more once I see the documentation and, go to the filling out and, identifying and things of that nature, knowing that I'll be able to have access and get a response if I have questions at that point, will be my only question is will I be able to contact you and get that information if need be?
Yes, there's no problem at all. John has my contact information, and you can feel free to contact me at any time. As I mentioned at the onset of this call, that I can provide you general information, direct you to where you need to go to talk to the experts that you need to, for sure. I've been with USDA for a number of years, and I fully understand a lot of the programs and services that are available to you that you might have interest in. So John can feel free to share my contact information.
Will do. Master Grow Gang. He gave some good information about the scholarship. You guys got any questions about that?
I had to step away for a second, but there was a question that I think Brian wrote and say, are there any rules in place on what can be grown on the land? Was that
No, that
answered
wasn't
already. I'm
answered.
pretty sure
I
it
was going to
was,
get
right?
to that, but since you mentioned it, we'll go ahead and go with that. This is pertaining to what we had talked about earlier. I'm assuming with the conservation farmland. The
Yes.
question is, are there any rules in place on what can be grown on that land?
No, not really. It has to be an agricultural product. The one challenge that we've run into recently is that some states have legalized the production of marijuana. It is still illegal on the federal level, and you probably will not be able to qualify if you're growing marijuana on the land.
Okay.
I have another
Go ahead.
question. I hear talk is about like a lot of acres. You know, I'm in the city, Detroit. It's no, to my knowledge, no type of land, you know, that mass. Can we grow on small amounts?
Yeah, which state are you in?
I'm in Michigan, Detroit, Michigan.
Oh yeah, you're in Michigan. So in Detroit and Cleveland and Chicago and a lot of large cities across the country, we have the high tunnel that John, you might not have been on when we talked about the high tunnel. And those landowners have been determined eligible, and we've actually installed a lot of high tunnels in urban areas. And I would encourage you to contact your local USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service office or NRCS office, and they will be able to provide you information on what is available within your county.
Okay, thank you. And then as far as the college, the scholarships you were talking about, is that like an online, or is that in class schools?
So it would be again, this is to pursue pursue a degree. I wouldn't say 4-year, pursue a degree in agriculture. So I would say a lot of this is going to be on campus, and I know a lot of universities have expanded their online program, but I'm not aware of any of these 18, 90 universities that offer online exclusively. So I think you will have to spend some time on campus, but you'd have to contact those universities to determine what's available.
Now we can find a list of those universities, because I'm in Michigan, and okay, because the closest HBCU.
Yeah, those schools are listed on the USDA website. If you type in, go to the USDA website and then type in 1890 National Scholarship Program, and you will get information regarding that program, full detail. And as John mentioned, the deadline for this year is coming up pretty quick on January 31st. But again, this program is generally offered every year. So if you miss this year's deadline, there might be another opportunity next year. And it is a competitive program. It's not automatic. The person applying will be competing with students from across the country.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll go with Edward. I see you finally made it in. We have John Glover with the Land Steward Branch Chief with the USDA online, and just want to know if you may have had any questions that he may have can answer you. You spoke about with the high tunnels, and I know that you're on the health end of it. I didn't know if you might need to or want to ask any questions about perhaps the scholarship end of it that he just talked about. Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me? All right, good. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Yeah, I'm just jumping in, so I'm trying to get caught up with everything. I do appreciate him being here to, educate us on, the information that we're asking about. But as of right now, I don't have any questions as it pertains to that topic.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. I didn't know if you had any coming in or anything. I just wanted to make sure we gave you an opportunity to speak on anything.
Right. I appreciate that. I'm gonna sit back and listen, and I'll raise my hand if I do have any questions or anything like that.
Okay, that sounds good. Gabrielle Mosley, I see you got your mic on.
Yes, I do. I do have a couple of questions.
Go for it.
My first question, I would like to know: is there a certain size of land that for conservation? And also, I would like to know: can you also do a tunnel program on conservation type land?
Okay, to address your first question, that is determined actually by the local eligible entity that I mentioned earlier, which might be a state Department of Agriculture. You'd have to determine who is actually purchasing these conservation easements within your state. Again, USDA will provide up to 50% of the conservation value of those easements once they're acquired. But in general, I would have to say that they do look for larger parcels of land, but in particular on the East Coast, they do acquire smaller parcels. So if you have a smaller parcel of land, I would not automatically exclude myself from consideration. I would reach out to those entities to see what their requirements are and what they're looking for. Your second question was regarding the placement of a high tunnel or some other conservation practice on the land. You still can do that. Again, you control the land. If you sign up for an agricultural conservation easement, again, the purpose of those easements is to keep the land in agricultural production in perpetuity. So you can still do everything that you would normally do in terms of putting a high tunnel on it or growing any types of crops that you want to on it that's related to agriculture.
Okay, now when the land is put up under the conservation, can say a city come in and take the property, as far as eminent domain, because right now some of my property right now is right on the edges of the city limit. And if we do conservation type deal, is it protect against that?
Yeah, I would say that in general it's protected against that, and especially because these entities started acquiring conservation easements probably mostly back in the 90s is when they started. And we've learned a lot over time, and the deeds are written in a way that it really restricts those properties from being taken over by a city. USDA still retains an interest in those properties, so it's the federal government, and these cannot be taken through eminent domain. So I would say in general they're protected from the state or a city.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, that was one of my main concerns because it's property that's been handed down, and cities are growing, and they some cities taking land, and then a lot of people just selling their land, and we my family did not want to do that. We want to try to preserve it as long as we can. And,
exactly right.
Because I really believe that there's a big need for Black farmers.
Yes.
It's just that, for some reason, over the last quite a few decades, it's just not too many Black people that have an interest in it. But hopefully, with this group, we can make some kind of change.
Yes,
but,
I agree.
Now, that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, that was some good information there. So yeah, it's good to know that we will be able to hopefully be able to preserve some of the farmland that we still have. I know where I'm at is is considered the last remaining African American settlement in Indiana, and so one of the things that we would probably like to do around here is try to preserve the farmland that's around here, because it's becoming inevitable that the city limits are getting closer and closer. They're within a mile of us now. So that's good to hear. Elois Williams, I saw where you just came on. We have John Glover on here from the USDA. He's talked about the high tunnels. He's also talked about the 1890 scholarship program that they have. Didn't know if you had any questions that you may have came in with that you might want to ask, or if you're just trying to catch up with the rest of us. Okay. I don't hear anything, so we'll move to the next one. Tamika Peoples, do you have anything that you would like to ask?
I'm just trying to catch up, definitely taking notes on how to utilize the agricultural land easement preservation program. That seems like a good program. And is there, and you say just to go to your local representative offices and they can help us with that. So thank you so much for the information. Yeah. Very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, I would say the local USDA office is the place to start at, and they could direct you to where you need to go, because we administer that program in partnership with what's called an eligible entity, which again might be a local Department of Agriculture or just a conservation agency, and but that local office will be able to help you and direct you in the right place to go.
All right. Brian Johnson, let's see if you got anything that you would like to say. I know you was typing in earlier, but if you'd like to say anything, that's fine. If not, any comments that you would like for us to ask, we'll put that in there. And Ms. Herndon,
can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Now, I have a question about once a person secures the land, how do they go about getting equipment?
How do they go about getting equipment?
Yeah, like tractors and all that, you know, in order to do the work on the land. Like, where do you go for that?
So USDA has programs available in an agency called the Farm Service Agency, and normally that agency is in the same office as the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, the NRCS, and they have funding available to help with the purchase of equipment. There are different requirements in terms of eligibility, but I know that they offer programs for the purchase of equipment, and I don't know all the details of it. I don't work in that agency. But if you were to visit that local office in your county, they will be able to provide that information. And it's also available on the internet.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I'll have to go to my farm services and check in on that also. I know that's also the place that you go to for your high tunnels.
Yes.
And they've helped me. As a matter of fact, I've gotten money for two of them. Well, not myself, but I got one myself, and then my son, he's gotten one. And so we are putting those up. We got one up and in the process of putting the other one up. And these things are, well, you can get them in different sizes according to whatever it is that you whatever size you're able to utilize. But they pay up to a certain size, which is the size that we got, and that's 72 by 30. So that's a pretty big size. It's 2,100 square feet is basically what they give you money up for. And but you can get it larger than that. You can get them smaller than that. But that is the size that they'll pay up to as of this time.
And John, if you don't mind, but what percent did they pay for your high tunnel?
They finally came with the 90%. They first offered the 70%. We had done our homework beforehand, and we asked him if he was sure, and he went online. He read the same thing we read, and he said, yeah, 70. And then he came back and says, yeah, well, he called us up later on and informed us that we were to get the 90. But, one of the reasons why I wanted you guys to hear from John is to know that hopefully my situation is just a unique situation to where I'm the one who's really struggling trying to get information. Most of the information I get are from the other farmers that are around here. We've gone over and tried to help them in some of the work that they do. And in the process, they're giving us information about the things that we need. And so in that process, they're telling us like, oh, well, you can go and get a grant for this, or you can go get this. And this is how we became aware of these things. So, hopefully by looking online, having contact with John, if you got any questions, he can help clarify. But yeah, they did come with 70 at first, and then we began to ask questions and understand, as I said before, and I think John mentioned it, we are considered, what was it, underserved? Isn't that what they classify?
Yeah, historically underserved.
Historically underserved, yeah. So there are certain buzzwords that you would need to know going in that I'm writing that down. Historically underserved. That will assist you in letting them know that you know a few things about what's going on. That hopefully will help you along.
And something else I want to mention, John and I have been talking about these programs, and we just take it for granted that everyone kind of has a basic understanding. The program that John was talking about is called Environmental Quality Incentive Program, or EQIP, EQIP. And that program is basically a grant program that what we're talking about. And so John mentioned that he got 90% of the cost of his high tunnel paid for. So John received something similar to a grant, and so he does not have to pay that money back. He only needed to come up with 10% of the cost to build that structure. And I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the best things about it. And so we've learned about that, and we learned about the scholarship program. I know Gabrielle was talking about the loss of Black farmers, but perhaps some of our young people who are struggling out there. We have a lot of people who have degrees in things that they can't find jobs in. But as John Glover has told us today, that not only do they give us these degrees, which will help lead into us hopefully getting our own, or producing our own businesses in agriculture, but you can also work through the USDA. So those are good things that I see coming out of this, good opportunity. My thing is, we pay taxes. We need to utilize what our tax money is gone for. So, anybody else got any questions? Okay. Well, with that being said, John. I'm gonna thank you very much.
Yes, I do. I have one question.
Okay, hold on. Somebody jumped in there. Go for it.
This is Gabriel.
Okay.
My question is, how often can you apply for the high tunnel program?
So we have a continuous sign up, so you can go into the USD office at any time to sign up. They have what's called a batching period where they would take applications and then they might review and then make a selection a few times a year. But you can go in at any time to sign up. And then once you're signed up, you just will remain on the list. And every time they batch, they're going to consider your application.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking if a person is pretty successful with this first tunnel, and then he sees that he has the option to expand, I just want to know if the program was still optional, that a person can go in and apply for another tunnel.
Yes, it's not a problem at all.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Sure.
And Gabriel, I want to apologize for messing your name up all this time.
It's okay.
I tried to do good, but I come up short every now and then. So sorry about that. I'll keep that in mind for the future. So does anybody else have anything? Just raise your hand button or just jump out there and say something. Okay. Well, once again, John, I want to thank you very much for what you've done and for taking the time and opportunity. We'll try to see if we can get another time where we can get Barry Hamilton on and go from there. Looks like I got one last question from Greg Johnson. Says, has there ever been an instance where the USDA had to take back the land for any reason?
Not in any of the programs that I'm discussing here today. I do know that with some of the other agencies where they have programs where they make loans to purchase land. If you default on the land, there is probably some provision for USDA to take that property back. It would just like, if you were to go and get a loan to build a house or something like that, from a bank, that person who's lending that money would always have the right to recoup their investment.
Okay. Well, hey, that sounds good. Let me ask you a quick question before you go, since you brought that up. Is there any way that any of us who are inspiring to grow as farmers or anything like that could be given knowledge of any type of land that's brought back? Could we purchase that land at a discount, any land that they might bring back? I mean, I know that they have a thing here with taxes and stuff where if you don't pay your taxes, or with the banks, if things go up.
Yeah.
Do you guys have something like that also?
That I'm not sure of, John, but the agency that handles that would be that Farm Service Agency that we mentioned earlier.
Okay.
FSA. Okay. So they are the entity that makes the loan for properties. So they would have information on that. And another one I would also check with, I don't know for certain whether they make loans for farmland, but they might, is called the Rural Development Agency. So they are also in that local office there.
Okay.
So I would check with those two agencies. But the agency that I work for, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the NRCS, we don't make farm loans, so we're not in that business.
Okay. That's a rural and urban development?
Rural development.
Rural development? Okay.
Yep. And it's part of USDA. And other agency that I mentioned is called the Farm Service Agency, or FSA.
Okay. All right.
I have a quick question.
We got somebody else in there.
I'm sorry. Since you mentioned it, I was wondering, isn't there a government website where they list government-owned property for sale?
I know there is one for the housing, but I'm not sure about farmland.
Yes, sir.
There's a possibility that there is one for farmland, but I'm just not aware of it.
Yes, sir.
But the rural development that I mentioned earlier, they have houses listed on their website in your particular state and county that might be available for sale.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you once again.
Okay.
I appreciate everything you've done, and we if we get any more questions, we might hopefully be able to get you back on here and maybe answer a few more questions for us.
Okay, John, no problem at all. I really enjoyed visiting with you guys, and hopefully I've shared valuable information, and I want to remain a resource. Again, I'm not an expert in some of these areas I'm talking about, but at least I can point you in the right direction. So great visiting with you. Have a great night.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Bye.
Okay, everybody. That was a good conversation with John Glover with the USDA. He's the land steward and branch chief of the USDA in DC. I will be posting the link to the 1890 scholarship program and in our page site, and also in the Freedom Family website for anybody who may have anything. I know that if I'm not mistaken, we have another webinar tonight, if I'm not incorrect. So I know that everybody might have other things that they might want to do before that begins, and I don't want to waste everybody's time on this. Does anybody have anything that they want to share, or any questions that they want to ask right quick? If so, go ahead, type them in, or just go ahead and unmute and ask them.
Well, I'll have a question, but I like to say thank you, John. Man, I've been learning a lot. You know, I'm a real city boy. All my family down from Georgia and Florida. You know, this is really the first time of me hearing any of this. You know, so I like to thank you for bringing all of the information to me, and I'm here. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. I'm a city boy too, and I can't think of everything. That's why, you know, I'm hoping we can come together as a group, and you know, to me, it's more of a think tank. You know, we come in with a thing, and as we're coming with stuff, you know, somebody will say something that'll trigger somebody else to think of something or ask a question, and it builds from there. Because I definitely didn't think of the housing and stuff like that that might be out there from these groups that you know, when they take stuff back. So you know, I applaud everybody on their contribution and everything. And so what we'll be doing, we're going to have these sessions every 2 weeks on Thursday, and we will build from there. Parker Lewis, you got any departing words? You got anything to say? It looked like he may be froze. I don't know. I see his face, but I don't hear anything. So anyhow, thank you guys for everything. I will be posting this. Oh, there he is. He's back. You got anything to say?
Peace, light, and enlightenment. I appreciate everyone's time. I'm looking forward to, you know, sitting down and going through, I guess, the wins and losses from this week, you know, in a couple of weeks. Definitely looking forward to the information tonight, and hopefully, you know, being able to move forward together and you know, with the help of one another, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I look forward to talking with you guys and working with you guys. Thank you guys very much for everything. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off and let us go. And so we'll go from there. Thank you guys.